Hey there everyone, and welcome back to D&D Doge's Emporium of RPG Horror Story Cringe. In today's episode, we have a tale about a group ganging up on a player for not playing their character the way the group wanted, a story about a player wanting to hog all the gold, and more. But before we get into that, if you enjoy what I do here, it would be great if you would consider rolling a crit on that like button, and subscribing if you haven't done so already. Plus, it makes Sleepy Nipsey very happy.
Yes. That makes me happy. I am very sleepy.
But, with that said, let's get into these stories. Party attacks fellow player because her pink tiefling didn't act like a girl. By Reddit user, Snowerk22. So, first things first. Whilst this is my first post, I've been lurking in this part of Reddit for a while, as well as have watched tons of videos of different people reading horror stories from here, or talking of their own experiences. Also, this story is not technically my story, though I was present at the time, and it was the reason I left what had been my tabletop RPG group for going on 6 years. I did ask the permission of the person whose story this is, and she's even given me an update, which I will put at the end. So basically, at the time, we were a table of 5 people, with our DM included. We had been playing together for a bunch of years, like I said, when one of the other players introduced a new person. I'll call her Rose for the purpose of this post. We had just finished our previous campaign, which had been vampire themed, and were looking into a more classic high fantasy D&D adventure, which was why the other player, I'll call him Rogue, since that was his class for said new game, decided that this was a good time to bring Rose, who he had known for a while then. Apart from Rose, Rogue, and me, I played a fighter because I liked being the tank in game. There was our DM, and 2 more guys who played a bard and a warlock, respectively. This feels like a good moment to mention that all of us at the table were guys, and Rose was the only female player. This will be important, trust me. So, we made our characters and got to know each other a bit, and then started playing. Rose's character was a pink tiefling druid, I forget her character's name, who was essentially built up on the premise of looks like a cinnamon roll that could kill you. I thought that was a fun concept, especially because her character was an interesting contrast to our more dirty, gruff, typical high fantasy male characters. Her roleplay was also great. She'd play that tiefling as super cute and sweet, only for her to be the most vicious in fights. I thought it was amazing, but as I came to learn, the others did not agree. I think we had been playing for maybe half a year pretty regularly, and I was under the impression that we were all of the same opinion when it came to Rose, that she was nice, fun, and played a cool character. But then, the big thing happened that taught me better. About a month before the big thing, I noticed that Rogue and Warlock started acting sort of rude toward Rose, more than I previously noticed. But since they both just started university, I figured that maybe it was just the stress. Feel free to call me an oblivious oaf below, because, my god, I was oblivious, and I didn't say anything. Rose, for what it's worth, did not seem too bothered by it either. But then, over that month, everything became more and more tense, and I noticed that our DM seemed to deal her character a lot more damage. But I thought it had something to do with her character's backstory that would be revealed later or something, since she never brought it up herself. Then, finally, the big thing happened. A fight against a goon that I think was supposed to be our BBEGs, like primary minion or something. The DM was definitely dealing Rose more damage than usual now, and then, suddenly, declared that goon mind-controlled Rogue and Warlock. I expected them to protest, but they really got into it, and when the DM had them attack Rose's character, they seemed more energetic than they had all that session. Bard and my character resisted the charm of the goon, but when I wanted to step in and defend Rose's character, the DM said that I was too far away. Plus, Bard did not step in, claiming that his character was too shocked. Warlock and Rogue, under DM's lead, punched Rose's character to death's brink, and then the mind control of the goon finally let up. But instead of helping Rose's character, everyone just started attacking the goon. I tried to have my character stop the bleeding and keep Rose's character alive till Bard could heal her, but the DM said that I was too shocked to do anything useful, I got mad at him, but he sort of just cut me off and turned back to the fight. The party did defeat the goon, and I started calling to the bard to come heal Rose, but he just said no. Warlock and Rogue didn't say anything when both Rose and I started to argue now. Some context. Rose was really into angsty roleplay, and I think up to that point, she at least was in for that. But when she realized that the party had turned against her, she got rightfully mad. I don't remember exactly how the session ended, but basically, the other players let Rose's character die, and the DM did not let me fight them on that, nor let me attempt to help, since I was a knight so I can't heal, and must focus on the mission. Even though my character's personality was very cliché, shining knight gentleman-like. Rose did not return to the table with a new character the following session. When I showed up to our next meeting, the other guys were laughing and mocking her, and talking about how they were glad she was gone. I got mad and demanded that they explain what the hell that was. No idea why I didn't ask in the previous session. I genuinely don't remember. And they told me they'd been planning to essentially bully Rose out of the game for a while, since they apparently did not like that she played a pink character in a flower crown that did not act cute or like a girl. Yeah, I don't know. But I told them that they were dicks and left their group there and then. I'm embarrassed that I never noticed how awful these guys were before, and honestly, it was probably because before Rose, there hadn't been any other female people in our tiny social circle. And since we didn't hang out outside of our sessions, I hadn't seen them act sexist, though I'm sure the signs were all there, and I was just blind to them. I did text Rogue a few days after, and asked him why he had even brought Rose to the group, if he hated her so much. And he flat out admitted that he had hoped that she would play a character that he could seduce in-game. Apparently, she had mentioned that she wanted to try D&D, and he had seen a chance or whatever. So yeah, pretty awful group, and I'm glad I left. This was like 4 or 5 years ago now, by the way. I recently got back into contact with Rose, as she happened to be in the same seminar as me in university, and we had a good talk about everything. That is when I asked her if I could post this horror story, and she not only said yes, but told me what became of her after. She participated in some sort of online character swap. If you had a D&D character or original character to retire, you could swap it for another person's retired character, sort of like a D&D adoption. Her character was adopted by someone who used the whole thing of the party collectively killed the druid as a tragic backstory, resurrecting the character as a druid and a Death Domain Warlock multiclass, if I remember correctly. It sounds cool, and Rose said that the other player had a lot of fun with the pink tiefling. Rose herself apparently turned to local LARPs after that, but that isn't my scene, so I haven't played with her since. I don't know. I feel like I contributed to a bad situation for Rose, even though she told me that out of all the guys, I was at least not a jackass. But if anything, this experience opened my eyes to how sexist many of tabletop RPG and nerd spaces are towards women. Definitely changed how I interact in fandom spaces now. So, what do we think? Does this count as a horror story? Yeah, I'd say that those other players were scumbags. Having someone join a game and play for 6 months, only to plot to bully her out of the campaign because they didn't like that she wasn't playing girly enough. That alone is cringe. But for the one player to state that he invited her so he could hit on her in-game is not only cringe, but also a bit pathetic. Though I have to disagree with OP's summation that the story is evidence that the tabletop RPG or geek space in general is like this. From what I have experienced, the space is one of the most welcoming and tolerant scenes out there, and much like the horror stories that I read here, these types of things happening are outliers. At least OP was able to realize that the group he was playing with were scumbags and left, and Rose was able to further her role-playing experience into the LARP scene. Anyways, let's move on. One of my players was listening to Critical Role during the session, by Reddit user Empty Stupidity. So I, a 19-year-old female, have been DMing for my college friends. I've DM'd before, but those were only one-shots, and this is my first full campaign. As a result, I am incredibly nervous, and I just want everyone to have a fun time. The last session, I noticed that one of my players, a 19-year-old male, had an AirPod in. At first, this didn't bother me too much, because this player listens to music all the time outside of the game. I figured he was just listening to his own playlist, which bothered me a little because I put effort into creating a game playlist, but it was whatever. A bit later, I saw him lift up his phone, so I was able to catch his home screen. Clear as day, there was the Critical Role podcast cover, specifically the older one from the Geek and Sundry days, and it was playing. That hurt. All I want is for my players to have fun and be engaged in the game. Knowing that my friend was giving the game only half attention sucks. It made me feel like my game was boring, or I wasn't doing a good job engaging with everyone. Out of all of my friends, him and one other likes Critical Role. I've watched all of Campaign 1, and I'm up to date on Campaign 3. He's only up to date on Campaign 3, and has been working through Campaign 1, so I know Critical Role is a massive time commitment, but was it really necessary to do it during my game? He's only done it once, and I haven't talked to him about it yet, but I'll probably confront him if he does it again. Though granted, I'm not sure how I'll go about doing that. Yeah, that is a bit of a rude thing to do while playing a game of D&D. It's like when I hear about people playing a video game and playing D&D at the same time. If OP does end up having to talk to that player, I would suggest just saying that, while you understand that he likes Critical Role, that you would appreciate it if he pays attention to the campaign that you are running for him to play in. And that if he can't, he'll just end up like Orion Akaba and out of the game. But before we move on to the next one, if you have a story that you would like to be read on the channel, be sure to post it to the D&D Doge subreddit, and who knows, perhaps you just might see it in a future episode. Much like this following story. Player tries to hog gold from the party and tries to make me an accomplice. Submitted to the D&D Doge subreddit by Reddit user Nightwing Bully. Years ago, I was in a classic D&D campaign with some college flatmates of mine. We all had met, but weren't entirely close friends. There was this one player. I'll call them Sneaky Pete. Sneaky Pete was a rules lawyer like the best of them. At one point, when we were trying to find rooms at our starting village, Sneaky Pete pulled out a supplemental book, A Sword Costs Something or Another, to calculate the exact silver cost of a night's stay. The DM, bless their heart, hand-waved it and said that it would be a simple transaction, 3 gold or something. Our player was outraged, saying that the GM, not the NPC, but the GM was price gouging. The other players, myself included, were stunned, but I spoke up first, having been a GM before, and said, in character, that I would gladly pay the 3 GP, just trying to move the scene along. Everyone else agreed, decided who would share what rooms, but not Sneaky Pete. Oh no. Sneaky Pete marched to the church and slept under the pews, sulking. A bit cringy, but whatever. We all have bad days, I guess. Some people can get really attached to certain established rules, so I can have some strange sympathy. The GM talked to them afterwards, but they really didn't get anywhere with Sneaky Pete by the time I had left for my room. During the following session, we were escorting a caravan from town when we were attacked by a group of bandits. It was a muddy road, and they were firing these fire arrows at us, trying to burn our caravan's wagons, so we had to act fast to kill as many archers as possible. Sneaky Pete, knowing that there was a price on the head of specifically the bandit leader, found him and began to fight essentially a 1v1 in the middle of this fight. But, you know, okay, sure, someone should be fighting the leader, not a problem. I was playing a bard and took it upon myself to douse the flames as best I could, not really entering combat so much, which will be important coming up. Eventually, the bandits start losing, and the captain does something to stun Sneaky Pete and starts running. I, being next in initiative, cast Sleep on the wounded captain, and he drops before making it very far. I'm heralded as the MVP of the fight for saving the wagon and stopping the big bad, but I do admit that it was a team effort, and I was honestly scrambling to find a way to be useful during the fight. Sneaky Pete did not appreciate the praise I got, claiming that they did all the work on the big bad, which I totally agreed with. To be honest, I think the fact that I kept saying that it was a team effort, trying to encourage everyone as opposed to hogging all the glory, may have made them even more pissed off. We return to town and get the gold for the escort, and Sneaky Pete tries to take my character aside as we are about to take the bandit captain back alive to get our bonus. He tries to convince me that since only the two of us did anything to the captain, only we should share the bonus. I'm honestly confused. Like, what? Not only do I not agree with this, all for one thinking, but I specifically was the one who 5 minutes ago said that it was a team effort. Sneaky Pete wanted this to be as hush-hush as possible, but as players, literally everyone heard them. Maybe Sneaky Pete thought that no one would be mad because their characters would not know, but I nipped that in the bud really fast. I argued that the other characters would definitely like something for their hard work. Sneaky Pete tried to dissuade me, and the other players at this point were starting to speak up, only for Sneaky Pete to give the classic, "You're not here." Alright, fine. If you want to play in character, I can too. In character, I go, "Well, let's put it to a vote. Hey guys, come over here, would you? Sneaky Pete's character has an offer." I go over the offer in character and go, "So, what do you all think? Should we all get the bonus or just the two of us?" The vote was unanimous against Sneaky Pete, who was now very embarrassed. Afterwards, the game more or less fizzled out, and while we all sort of ran in and out of each other's games, no one really played with Sneaky Pete much after that, as far as I know. We were all in college, so I hope they've matured since then, but who could say? I really like your content, D&D Doge. Give them kitties some special tummy pats for me. Well, I'm glad you like my videos, and will do. Sneaky Pete seemed like one of those players that takes the game a bit too seriously, to the point that they start to get greedy with the in-game loot or gold. As far as my experience in playing tabletop RPGs, most of the parties I'm in tend to not be so fickle with our money, and oftentimes, each character will have a moment that they will gladly pay for the other characters, whether it be for food, rooms, hell, even potions. Though, at the same time, he could have just been playing a character that has a problem with greed, in which case, it can work if done right. Maybe that character learns that sometimes it's better to share than to hoard stuff for yourself. But I have to admit, this case sounds more like a player trait than a character one. Plus, what did he think would happen? The other characters wouldn't notice that the bandit leader is not around anymore? I'm sure they would have some questions about that. But anyway, that will do it for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may all of your games remain horror story free. Until next time.